So I'd like to introduce John Pappas. He will be introducing our panel, our session, and introduce your questions as well. So you can move to the next slide. John is the Senior Director of Business Development and responsible for CSI's business-to-business strategy. He's been in financial services for 25 years and has occupied several roles, including portfolio manager, senior account executive, advisor in private banking, and economist. In his spare time, he's a professional musician and designs and builds custom guitars. So without further ado, let me turn the session over to John.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks for that, that terrific introduction. I'd like to welcome all the participants to today's session, wherever you may be, whether you are in Eastern Time or in Western Canada or further east or even elsewhere. So welcome to the session today. Promises to be quite informative. The format for today's session will be three panelists who are joining us, who I'll introduce momentarily. And the format itself will include three questions, one to each of the panelists, and a fourth question that will be asked of Marie as we get closer to the end of the slide presentation. As Marie mentioned, if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to click on that and ask questions throughout. We will likely save most of the questions to the end. We'll allow for about 15 or so minutes of question and answer as we get to the end. Introducing the panelists, from the middle of your screen to the right, we welcome from York University, Monica Brennan, who's Bridging Program Manager. Next to Monica, we have Tarun Dhingra, who is Assistant Branch Manager at Royal Bank of Canada. And lastly, we have Deepinder Kohli, who joins us from TD Wealth, and Deepinder is a financial planner. So let's move on to the first question. I will ask the first question of Monica. Monica, what advice would you give to newcomers to help them overcome hurdles and successfully land a job in the Canadian banking sector?
Hi, John. Thank you for having me in the webinar. I'm not sure if you're aware there is music playing in the background and it's a bit difficult for some of the viewers to hear, I think is a message in the chat. Just to answer that question, I suppose as many people know, there's great opportunity for people here in Canada in the financial sector. And here at York University, we've worked with hundreds of newcomers try and settle into the sector. And we've noticed in the sector, across many other sectors, that sometimes newcomers face challenges in connecting with the right job after they arrive in Canada. They may also take a little longer to find that right job or be able to get back to employment at the level in which they worked before arriving. And so really what I would suggest to people is to understand what might be some of those hurdles that they're facing as they begin to settle in Canada, and think about how they can overcome those, because they're common challenges and there are a lot of common strategies that people can use to really be able to address any barriers that they're facing in looking for work. So some things that we recommend is, for example, when you're approaching employers, you want them to understand that the education that you have and that you're bringing with you, how does that translate into the educational market here in Canada? So are you able to explain how the degree that you have what is its equivalent here in the Canadian market? And so that whoever is reviewing your resume and looking to hire you has a good understanding of what is the academic and training experience that you bring with you. You also might want to think about what are the skills that are needed here in the local market? So while you might have a background and experience to work in a diverse way in the financial sector, perhaps you want to be able to really look at what part of the skill set that you bring is most marketable here in Canada, and that really is responds to what is needed in the local market. And if after arriving here, you realize that perhaps there are different skills that are more marketable here in Canada, looking for how you could be able to sort of upgrade those skills. So again, to better match the jobs that you're interested in and looking for here, or that are more in demand in your field here in the financial sector. We also really encourage people to come to learn about perhaps the culture of job search here in Canada. So every country has a different approach to job seeking. And we encourage newcomers after they arrive to talk to other newcomers, to talk to people working in the sector, to really understand what's the common way that people look for jobs here. And what are the common ways that companies and organizations use when they're recruiting staff to best match the staff that they're looking for to the jobs that they have available. It's also important for you as someone who's connecting with hiring managers to think about some biases that they may have. So looking at perhaps what they're looking for when they're looking at experience, they're thinking that maybe local experience would be more valuable. And we know that that sometimes happens. It can be a bias in the mind of a hiring manager, or just something that you need to connect with to be able to explain to them the value of the global experience that you bring. It's also important to think about communication, and I'll talk about that a little later, but to really think about not just how to communicate well in English, but also to look at other aspects of communication skills that are very important. So for example, getting to know occupation specific. So key language that's used here in relation to key terms that are used here in the financial sector, and to brush up on that aspect of your language skills. And then also to look at skills that relate to communication within the workplace in Canada. And so understanding both maybe the common approaches to how people manage in the Canadian workplace and communicate in the workplace, and how you can hone and brush up those skills as you're working. Of course, there are two official languages in Canada, English and French. And so, of course, that's also an important thing for you to keep in mind when you're brushing up on your language skills here. Next slide. So there are a lot of supports for newcomers. So I think many of the levels of government, as well as educational institutions, really realize that it's very important in Canada for us to support newcomers to best connect with the jobs that best match their skills. Because of course, you know, all of you who are coming to Canada or arrived here, you bring talent that this Canadian market needs. And you bring talent and skills that we really, our companies and organizations can benefit from. And so there have been a lot of investment in organizations and services that really can support you as newcomers to better be able to find those jobs and work at a level in which your skill set offers. So there are different levels of services that you can connect with that can really support you just to succeed better or faster after you arrive in Canada. So one layer of service that's available to you is newcomer services, and these services can really help you settle in Canada. They can be focused on a wide range of services, including basic language supports, things like getting assessments of your skills and qualifications, providing you with tips on settling your family, and connecting with things that might support you to succeed in the workplace, like connecting with local childcare, for example. There are also many organizations, both settlement organizations and employment organizations. So these are free services that are provided and funded through different levels of government here in Canada that might support you to be able to not just enhance your English or French language skills, but how you can, as I mentioned before, work on developing your skill set that relates specifically to the financial sector. So often there are short language programs that really focus specifically for people who are working or intending to work in the financial services. There's also free employment services. So here in Ontario, there's something called Employment Ontario Services, and there's also employment services funded by the City of Toronto. And across Canada, in different provinces and cities, there are different services that are funded by local government that are really focused on supporting people who are looking for work to be able to get tips, advice, connect with job developers, connect with recruitment events that are going on to help job seekers find employment. Some of these can help with small tasks like redeveloping your resume for the Canadian market, helping you think about how to promote yourself and pitch yourself to local employers, developing your online brand through platforms such as LinkedIn, and just being able to get general support and learning about employers in your locality. There are also mentoring programs for job seekers, but there are also many specific mentoring programs that have been designed in particular to support newcomers. And really what many of these programs do is try and connect with professionals that are working in the field that you want to work in, financial services, and you get to meet people who've been successful at finding employment in those fields. And you can gain from their knowledge of an experience to think about how to conduct your job search, and again, get a better understanding of that kind of culture that I spoke with before, of the hiring processes and workplace culture. And you can also get, these are allies for you who can help you think about how to succeed in your profession here. And they can give you their own feedback when they review things like your pitch and your resume. There's also, we generally encourage newcomers to also think about how they can get Canadian experience while they're looking for employment. And outside of employment, you can also gain experience through things like volunteering. So volunteering for organizations or services using your skill set. Many volunteer organizations need bookkeepers or people who might be able to assist in different aspects of financial services. And so you can gain a local reference from a local organization, but also get a chance to dip your toe in the Canadian market and learn a bit about practices here. There's also paid internships for newcomers. Organizations like Career Edge offer connections to employers here in Canada where you can get paid for a period of time while you get a position that also supports you as a newcomer to work in Canada. And there are, like our program here at York University, bridge training programs. And these are programs that have been specifically designed to assess newcomer skills, provide them with targeted training, and to help them connect faster to the financial services industry. And they focus generally on three things: building that your language communication, your occupation communication, helping you gain a comprehensive knowledge of business culture and management culture in Canada, and also providing you with courses and skills that might help you to be more marketable locally, or perhaps gain credentials that you would need to practice in the field. For example, if you're an accountant, being able to gain those courses and skills that help you understand that infrastructure here in Canada. Next slide.
Question for you, Monica, if you don't mind. With regards to your previous slide on the various resources, given that you're responsible for bridging programs at York University, how many of these various types of resources or services, if you will, tend to be wrapped into these bridging programs? In other words, as part of the bridging program, does your organization offer up things like employment services or mentoring programs or anything of that nature? In other words, how much crossover is there in all these resources that are out there?
Yeah, sure. So Each bridging program is designed differently. So there are some bridge programs that are very short and intensive. For example, Access Employment runs one in financial services, which is an excellent short program, and it focuses on connecting people with employers. Our program is we have two programs. One is a shorter program, and one is a longer program that gives people more opportunity to take courses relating to the financial sector. But most of these programs are designed so that they have many of those components in one place. And that's the idea, that these are programs that are designed to be like a one-stop shop for people, that they can come, they can upgrade their language skills at the same time as getting feedback on their resume and support. Through our program and many of the programs at Seneca and Access Employment, people also get connected with mentoring programs. So often our programs are like a hub, and we connect you to the other services that are available out there, but through the lens of the specific occupation that we support and serve.
That's great. Thank you. Very helpful.
You're welcome. So I mentioned some of these things, but I think it's really important when you're thinking about upgrading your skills, either when you're planning to come to Canada or after you've arrived, that you think about these different components that I've mentioned already. So one is thinking about your soft skills. So it is important not just to think about how to interact with people in hiring processes, interviews or conversations, but they're also a two-way street. And it's very important that you be able to develop those skills of communicating and relating to people within the Canadian culture. It's also important for you to get to understand local laws and regulations that apply to the financial sector here. And I'm sure our other speakers will talk about their experience in doing that. And of course, IT skills are also definitely marketable when you're looking for work. And so getting to understand, maybe IT systems here are the same as the systems that you were using, but perhaps in the market here, there are certain systems that are more commonly used. And if you're able to identify what those are and to be able to gain those skills, again, that may help you connect faster to employment. Next slide, please. And so finally, we've talked a bit about this already, but of course, when you move cities or countries, your network has changed. So perhaps I know in Canada anyhow, what we would call the hidden job market, meaning some people find employment through jobs that are posted on websites, but there are many other jobs and opportunities that are out there that aren't necessarily posted publicly. And so it's very important that you begin to build relationships with people who are working in the companies and the sector where you're targeting to find employment, so that you can find out about ways people look for talent, and how you can connect to those ways that they're looking for talent, other than just public advertisements. And that might be internship programs, but it might also be through referrals from people within companies. And so it's very important that you focus on how to build your professional network within the local environment, so you can have your ear to the ground and learn about that. But also, it's really important to build a network, because it's people who are working within those networks can give you a sense of where the trends are, both the trends in terms of hiring and the trends in terms of what's needed within your sector. So we really encourage any newcomers who arrive through our program to attend, conferences, networking events in the local financial sector, find out where, financial professionals go, and get to meet people through that. But there also are a lot of settlement organizations that I mentioned before, and employment organizations partner with companies and run intentional networking events for newcomers to help you be able to connect with professionals. So keep your eye out for those kind of events and make sure that you look to attend them. And a couple of other ways to build your network would be through reaching out to people, again, either through programs that are set up to be able to have quick coffee chats with professionals in your field, or use your online network, or when you're meeting with people in networking events to ask them for a bit more time. Can I have 30 minutes of your time to do an information interview? And you'd be surprised the goodwill that's out there within the sector. Remember, in Toronto has been built by immigrants, and many people working in the professional sector are themselves, many leaders within the sector are themselves immigrants and are willing to give other people newly arriving a bit of time to be able to support them through things like information interviews. So don't be shy, reach out to people, ask them for just a little bit of their time, and really be able to see if you can get those insights that can really help you direct. When you're looking for a job, without these kind of connections, it takes you longer to be able to connect with employment. But when you build those connections and get those advice, you can really shorten the length of time it will take you to succeed in Canada. And I've seen where people use those multiple approaches. They definitely get jobs faster and at higher salaries, and tend to connect with better employment that better satisfies and suits their professional skills as well.
That's great, Monica. Thank you very much for all that detailed information. I'm sure many of our participants will find everything you shared today very, very useful. And I can tell by the number of questions that are coming in that people have lots of things to ask. So we'll save those for the end. Moving on at this point, if we could move to the next slide, I would like to invite Tarun to walk us through and talk about his success story as a newcomer to Canada and the various things that he's done over the years throughout his career, and how he ended up ultimately being successful throughout this whole process. Tarun, I will pass it over to you, and please take the time that you need to walk us through your story.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for hosting me here. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tarun, and I'm the Assistant Branch Manager at Royal Bank of Canada in Scarborough area. I started my journey in 2017 when I came to Canada and landed as a new immigrant from India. Once I came here, a lot of difficulties happened, a lot of discouragement happened because it was a brutal winters, number one, and very hard to find somebody or connect somebody through my network or through somebody else's network what I have to do. But I followed my network and associations to have an interaction with experienced people who can guide me to the correct path. And I specifically knew that I wanted to get into a retail segment of banking and grow my career in that segment. I joined CSI Network as well as Access Employment to gain knowledge and experience from the leaders and industry experts also. And I realized that if I have to enter into a retail segment, I have to be licensed to be an advisor role with the bank. When I joined CSI, I happened to give my investments funds of Canada from CSI, where the reason also was very specific to give IFC. Anybody who wants to be an advisor have to be licensed to sell mutual fund, and which I did it through IFC. There are a lot of people who goes through CSC also, which is specifically designed for somebody looking to become full-time service investment advisor or financial planner or financial advisors, which will be later taken on or by Deepinder, who is a financial planner also. And IFC is basically just to have a foundation wherein you can advise mutual funds. After 4 months of struggle, I happened to join CIBC Bank in 2017, only in May, as a financial service representative, which you might have seen as a FSR. A lot of time people say in RBC, which is called a banking advisor. Scotia, it's called a financial advisor. BMO, it is called financial service manager. So there are a lot of different names, but I'll tell you what this financial service rep represents. Well, number one, it's the first point of contact towards any of the client's need in the bank. So you are technically face of the bank because you represent a bank and a branch because you're talking to the client. There are 4 areas where I was focusing as a financial service rep. Number one was cash management, which is technically your opening accounts, You're guiding them to have a proper visa, whether it's a travel visa or a cashback visa, depending on the needs. Investments, focus on their cash flows and retirement planning. This is more specific wherein an FSR finds out an opportunity for a client for a retirement planning or for a cash flow planning, and they later give this referrals to the specialists who are financial advisors or a financial planner or a retirement planner. Third area where this FSR focus is on lendings, which is loans, lines of credits, and mortgages, where a lot of countries where mortgages are called home loans also. So we are the one who are doing, we are not doing mortgages. We are actually putting somebody's ambition into reality, because ultimately it is all about client experience, which a banking role defines you, and which everybody expects in a bank to deliver something which is exceptional and make a positive client experience. Number 4 is a wealth protection, which is a state planning, which is not truly driven by us. It is a state department and the wealth protection department and an insurance side, but we are the one who guide the client what to have near to your retirement also. Client engagement, which is number 1, wherein our FSR or a financial service rep have a total core area to engage the client into all these 4 areas of specialization. Relationship building, which is very important, and leveraging technology. In the previous slide, also Monica discussed about the technology area. We are moving towards a digitalization. So our core area is now to make everybody aware of the mobile banking, internet banking, what all sorts we can do to have a person leverage to our technology. I later got promoted in 2018 as a senior financial services rep, which is one of the same kinds, but the responsibility in terms of taking initiatives, having a leadership qualities, this gets increased and the responsibility increases. In 1 or 2 years, I was a manager backup also, wherein my area, what I decided, I will have to handle a branch and I want to be a branch manager. So one is an individual contributor, wherein you focus on financial advisor role, financial planner role, and a private banker. Number 2, it was assistant branch manager or manager backup or as a branch manager. So my area was into the management role. So I later joined Royal Bank of Canada as assistant branch manager, where my specific role is operations, wherein I have to focus in and out on daily operation, what is happening, how's the cash flow structure of the branch, how's the client experience of the branch. This is my area went up to, and the only thing which I always suggest to everybody who has come right now in COVID time also, that don't give up, because I happen to give more than 40 interviews, but I got a rejection in all 4 months. But slowly and steadily, I have started picking up points and learned something new to take out from these interviews and really worked on it. And this vicious circle goes on, wherein I networked a lot. Till now, I networked with the first mentor I met in 2017. And in fact, in 2016, when I was in my country, I was happening to make a lot of contacts. So I am still in touch. So I think whatever I took it, I want to pay it back. And if you require anything from my side, I am truly active on LinkedIn with my name. You're most welcome to ask anything, or if you need any planning or anything related to the banking in terms of retail area, I'll happy to help. That's about it, John, from my side.
Well, thank you, Tarun. That's quite a story that you walked us through, and thank you for sharing that. Apart from your persistence, which I think is really important when you're looking for a job, whether you're a newcomer or whether you're somebody who has lived here all their life, I think persistence is a very, very important quality in landing a job at the end of the day. But in addition to that, I've got a quick follow-up question for you. How important was it, and maybe you can tie the two together, that you complete, in your case, the investment funds course, or for that matter, any form of required licensing or certification? How important was that as it relates to actually getting the job that you were after?
Thanks, John. I will speak in a very layman language. So what used to happen was when I was applying, I was getting a lot of rejection initially. Then I realized from my mentors and the leaders who discussed with me that if my resume doesn't have the IFC course or a CSC course, it doesn't go through that software and the keywords doesn't take it out. So for me, the priority was to give either CSC or IFC from CSI so that at least I can input that certification on my resume so that it gets shortlisted, because I already had a previous experiences through my retail banking. I already knew what I am doing, but the most important was the certification. Without a certification, you cannot get into an advisor role, because anything related to the mutual fund which an advisor is doing, which will be later discussed by Deepinder also, has to have a license. So that was the most important area. So I think within 2 months, when I came here, I networked a lot and I realized that I have to get this license, and I appeared for this test and I cleared it. And then I started applying again. But in between, I never stopped networking or maybe studying also, so that at least if I get the certification, let the ball keeps rolling. I will not start at that time.
Very good. Thank you for that. Let's move to the next slide at this point. I will invite Deepinder to walk us through a similar yet different experience. Deepinder, please take the time to walk us through your story and the successes that you've had along the way in ending up where you are today.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity on this platform to share my own experiences and to talk about how any newcomer to Canada can become a successful banking professional. Now, starting from my own story, I, along with my wife and 2 little kids, we landed in Canada in October 2007. My kids were very small. My daughter, her age was, I believe it was 3.5 years, and my son was just 2 years old. And many of us would agree with me that lending in Canada in that year of 2007, it wasn't a great year to come in with. Lots of snowfalls, recession was in process to take its grip, and it finally arrived in early 2008, and lots of uncertainties everywhere. Everybody was asking me, why would you choose like this month or this year to come to Canada? You could have waited, right? So, I mean, I had to do what I was supposed to do. So, pulled the trigger, landed here. And if I share my own professional experience back home, I had a pharmaceutical sales background, and I worked as a area business manager for almost 8 or 9 years in Indian multinational company. Now, due to recession and slower economic growth all over, it wasn't a good start for us, right? Especially my industry, like pharma industry, majority of companies were laying off their employees. There was no hiring process anywhere, and I didn't know where to turn into. Now, I wanted to get into a secure and stable sector, and everybody can imagine and correlate. Like first 1 or 2 years were extremely difficult for us as a family to get all those to meet all those ends meet, right? Now, during that time, I had to go to one of the bank for my day-to-day banking activities, and met with the branch manager for something. And I found this opportunity and asked him, what exactly is required to work as an advisor for a bank, right? So he advised me, and I'm so grateful to him. That was a very right and good advice he gave me at that point. I'm talking about in like more than 12 years. He told me to enroll in Investments Fund Canada course offered by CSI, right? And he obviously told me, like Tarun already mentioned about it, to become an advisor, you have to be licensed, right? To offer mutual funds and talk about investment planning and stuff, right? And plus, obviously, we need some sort of any type of foreign credential or any certification to put your feet down, right? I followed his advice and completed that course in some time. And also in the meantime, I completed my life licensing exam also, which is required to become a life insurance advisor, which I completed after some time. So now I had 2 Canadian certifications to start my banking career. So I obviously was feeling very confident at that point, because initially without those certifications and credentials, whenever I was sending any resume to banks or any other financial institutions, I never get any response back from any one of them, right? So once I had those, I updated my resume. I started uploading my resume and sent it to all the banks, all the 6 big banks of Canada. And I was surprised, actually. I started getting response back from them. They called me for interviews. I got, phone interviews first, obviously, and then it was a whole process. And you'll be surprised, I got the jobs in almost all the banks I applied in. And obviously, it was very, very, very happy moment for me and my family, at least. This was my focus at that point, to be into a banking sector. So I was getting that response. Now I had multiple options, and I could choose who to go with. So I chose to work with TD at that point, because they were paying me the most out of all of the banks at that time, and which turned out to be one of my best decisions of my life. Since then, I would say I've been working with TD. It's more than 11 or 12 years, still working with the same organization. And I would say that I'm growing within the organization, getting a lot of support, guidance from the leadership team, and work with one of the best bosses ever, still currently, and previous bosses. Everybody helped me. I always felt supported. Currently, I'm working as a financial planner, right? Now, one thing I just wanted to let you know here, when I joined TD, right, like I identified my personal career goal of becoming a financial planner. So obviously I started working towards that goal. And like I said, so I keep on asking for the job sharing within my organization, talk to different mentors, and obviously took all the help from whichever available resources we have within the organization to get information on what needs to be done, what is required, what designations I should have, and what credentials would be helpful, right? So I just started my path, right? Just followed my passion at that point. And finally, I became a financial planner in, I would say, in 2016, right? It took me some time to reach out there, but trust me, there's never any shortcut, and if there is any, it would be short length, right? For natural progression of your career and for yourself, you have to invest yourself into that field to get the better results. Now, Tarun has explained and mentioned all the different responsibilities and different roles within the banking. If anybody is interested to work in the retail sector, again, those are some of the positions which he already mentioned and talked about. I'm currently working as a financial planner, so it's not a part of retail. Like, I mean, it's wealth management is completely different line of business, right? So what a financial planner does, like we basically, it's a one-on-one relationship with our high net worth and mass affluent clients being referred to us from the retail side. And what we do differently for our clients is, like, we create a proper financial plan for our clients after understanding what their goals are, right? Now, it can be a long-term goal, it can be a short-term goals, right? And we help them achieve those goals, right? The most important thing we have to make sure is to understand what their investment objectives are and what is their risk tolerance, because that becomes the foundation of any plan, right? We prepare the proper investment strategies for our clients, right? We do proper asset allocation of their funds, and I'm sure like majority of us might be knowing, in Canada, every account in every fund or different incomes are being treated differently in Canadian taxations, right? So we have to make sure that we're doing their asset allocation the right way, and help them taking all the advantages wherever they can maximize the tax benefit, right? We plan for the retirement, and that's the most important thing every Canadian wants to know. When I say plan for retirement, the first and foremost thing obviously we do is like to understand what their current income sources are, right? And what their income sources would be at the time of their retirement, and what is their retirement income objective, right? So when we do all the cash, like we prepare all the cash flow statements based on their current sources of income at the moment, and we also prepare the cash flow projection statement for the rest of their life. And doing all those calculations, we have to incorporate all the inflation part, right? So that they should at least have the clear picture in their mind whether they will be all right or not, right? And if there's any shortfall, so this is what our work is, like from now, whatever the age is, up to the age of 65 or whichever age they would like to retire, like this is your cash flow look like, and after you retire, based on your income sources, this would be like. So we plan from the age of 65 up to the age of 95 years, and make sure that they have enough and they meet their goals. If there's any shortfall, then obviously we start planning for that. That's my goal, right? Now, not only that, we plan for their estate. The most important thing, again, everybody has a lot of questions. If people have bigger estate, they have bigger questions, they have bigger complications and implications going forward. They should understand like how the probate fee works, how what are the taxable implications they have on certain different accounts. Like I said before, in every account and every income is treated differently. What taxable implications will they have if they have a lot of, their investments in the registered account, like your RSPs and everything, right? So we do plan all that. We let them know how important is to have wills and power of attorneys. What are the responsibilities of an executor? What steps an executor can take to minimize the taxes on the in the year of the death of the person whose estate we're talking about, right? So these are all the plannings and everything we do. Then we talk about like small business clients, right? Like we talk about their business succession planning, which again, sometimes it becomes very complicated. We have to make sure that what structure they have, like in their own business, whether it's a incorporation, whether it's the sole proprietorship, right? And we make sure that they have any type of shareholder agreements if they are in some sort of partnership, right? How they can draw the money from the incorporation. What is the most tax efficient way, right? We calculate all those numbers for them, right? And finally, obviously, the most important thing is like how much balance they have in capital dividend account and how they can plan for the succession, right? Whenever the time comes, if there's any buy and sell provision in place or not, right? So these are all the things. Sometimes it can be simple depending on individual situation, and sometimes it can be very complicated. And we make sure that they are aware that if their small business corporation is eligible or is qualified, being a qualified small business corporation, whether they can take advantages of the lifetime capital gains exemption as well, right? So these are some of the things. We also provide how to protect their assets, their incomes. We help them in planning the education of their young children. Like there's so many things. A one-stop shop, any client coming up with any of the situations. So we prepare a customized financial plan for them, and then to deliver the plan, and we meet them on regular basis, most likely on annual basis, just to review the goals and just to let them know like if there's any change on their side, if we have to make any changes. So like I said, it's not a one-done thing. It's an ongoing process for the rest of their life. It's a long-term commitment for the client and obviously for us, right? So this is what I always wanted to become. And it gives you a lot of professional satisfaction, especially I can only say about my organization. I worked for TD and I didn't have any other experiences working in different organizations, but it also matters for the newcomers wherever you work. Like I can say about me, my opinion matters. My voice always got heard. I got a lot of respect and always felt supported, right? That's something you should also consider when you choose who you want to work with, right? Now, one thing, again, apart from networking and everything, Tarun already mentioned all that part. If you look into my timeline below, right, like since I joined banking industries with TD, I have been upgrading my skill set, right? my knowledge and my professional ability to enhance my skills and to provide benefit to our communities for their financial success, right? And like I said before, it gives you immense pleasure and feeling of accomplishment in helping your communities to achieve their goals. And again, the most important thing is I believe very strongly the learning should never stop. And if it ever stops, your growth also stop at the same time, right? Again, I must say here, the banking sector is one of the most stable sector in Canada. And my advice to all the newcomers who are coming to Canada or who already in Canada looking for the job, they should keep on upgrading themselves if they're really interested in pursuing their careers in banking. It's very fruitful, very respectful, knowledge-based, noble profession to be in. And if you have any of those certifications, you always get an edge over the other candidates who don't have them in the selection process, right? That's the most important thing, because sometimes, if you see any job opening in any of the bank, and if you just started or you just enrolled in any course, you should always mention that in your resume that you have enrolled for Investment Funds Canada from CSI or whichever course you enrolled for. Like you just mentioned that I'm enrolled in, and I'm planning to complete that course. Give them the timeline, like maybe 6 months, 5 months, year. This shows that you're serious about the profession, and you're willing to have a long-term commitment. You're just not looking for a regular job, right? So you're there to invest your time, you invest your skill, and you're there to grow within the same organization, and obviously with the growth of that organization, right? Once
that's great,
sorry.
Deepinder. That's fabulous. That's some really, really great advice, and quite a success story from moving to Canada in 2007. You've come quite a ways since then. I certainly encourage you and any participants who are on the call today to continue down the path of lifetime education. As you pointed out, it's a very important component. Just in the interest of time, Deepinder, I don't mean to cut you off, but thank you very much for all your comments. I really appreciate you joining us here today. I'd like to move on to a next question here that I'd like to pose to Marie. Marie, I see you back on the screen. Thanks for coming back on. Marie, in the interest of someone's career, how can newcomers get started down a path?
Well, John, I'll be quite brief because I think our participants have talked about the Investment Funds in Canada course and the Canadian Securities course. In brief, if you want to work in retail banking and you want to go beyond our
I think we maybe lost Marie here.
There's no voice coming.
I think she froze up. So I think while Marie's dialing back in, I'll pose this question back to Marie once she comes back on. We've got a number of different questions from the participants. So I think maybe I'll go down that road here for the next few minutes while Marie rejoins us. First question I have, and I'll ask this of Monica first, but by all means, Deepinder, feel free to jump in, as well as yourself, Tarun. So the question here is, as a newcomer, with some education and experience in a different country, if if I, as an individual, am aimed at a career in financial services, is it a good idea to take any job upon first arriving here, whether it's in my chosen area or not? I'll ask you that question first, Monica.
Yeah, I think that's a complex question, and it is for each person to make their own assessment about what helps them be motivated while they're looking for work and gaining that. In general, we suggest that people try and first target jobs closer to their educational and experience level, so that when they're starting in the market here, they're not going all the way back to the beginning. Of course, it's easier to get into an entry-level job, but sometimes that can also delay your ability to build your career. So I think you have to assess that. That said, you can also take a lower level job, but just make sure that when you're applying for work in Canada that you explain that. So in the interview, you say, I took this, entry level position, but I did that with the goal to be able to brush up on my, navigating the services here in Canada. But my goal is a position at this level, so that you're not having to work all the way up from the bottom again. So I think it's up to the person who's looking, but generally we encourage people to target jobs closer to their professional experience. It takes a little longer to get them, but then you're starting at a much higher salary level. Probably some of the other speakers might be able to share their experience in that regard as well.
Tarun, Deepinder, any quick comments on, taking any type of role, even though it may not line up with your aspiration to work in financial services? Is there a benefit to that from your perspective?
Absolutely. I definitely would agree, like whatever position and job you're getting, because the most important thing is everybody's situation is completely different, right? So when you land into a new country, your main concern is how to take care of your cash flow, right? You still have the expenses, you have to pay all those bills. And like if you have an arrangement, like you can wait for 1 year and keep on upgrading your skills and still keep on trying in your respective job and experience you have it from back home, then you keep doing it, right? If like in my situation, I would say like I didn't wait, right? So whatever position I was getting, I just get those positions, but at the same time, I keep on upgrading my skills and keep on doing the certifications and courses, because if you know that you want it to be this in some time, then obviously you should know like what needs to be done, right? So if you spend all your time in getting those certifications and credentials, then it will be helpful whenever the right time comes.
Right. Tarun, anything to add?
Well, yes, Deepinder is right that when we come as a new immigrant, there are many cash flow questions which we have, because a few fixed expenses which we originally convert our dollars into the origin country's currency, and we buy stuff also. So just to manage that, I think a lot of people, they don't take IFC or CSI also. They want to have an experience. What I can suggest, there are many call center jobs in banking also which are there. There are many mortgage contact centers jobs which are there, which relatively goes again into a customer experience. In the retail branch banking, there with RBC, it is called a client advisor before a banking advisor, wherein they don't need a IFC license or a CSE license to get into the door. So maybe they can try with that opportunity also, so that at least they go through a part-time. Then once they know that, okay, this is the bigger picture I can see, which is 3 to 5 years, I can be a banking advisor or a financial advisor. They can enroll the certification that time in between, and they can have a practical experience as well as the knowledgeable experience through the textbooks also. So this is one of the wonderful, I have seen a lot of people doing it, including in my team also. I handle a team of 12 people, out of which 4 people have joined like this, and they want to become a banking advisor as well as financial advisor, but they want to have an insight first. So that is also a good option, because at the end of the day, there are fixed expenses as a new immigrant, which you really have to manage it, and it is difficult. So I think there's nothing called that it is a part-time job or it is every day is a new learning as a new immigrant. So why not to just get into it and learn in the starting way?
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. We're getting to just about 4 minutes before the top of the hour, and I'd like to ask a couple of more questions here. This one I'd like to pose to Monica. Monica, one of the questions that we have here, is it a good idea, and is it even possible to start a job search prior to arriving in Canada?
Yeah, I was really glad to see someone ask that because I should have mentioned that in my presentation. There are pre-arrival supports for newcomers coming to Canada and programs that can help you gain mentoring and networking before you even arrive. One example would be here in Toronto, JVS Toronto runs Canada InfoNet, and that's a program that helps immigrant professionals prepare and connect with mentoring and other services before arriving. So I would definitely encourage you to connect with some of those pre-arrival programs and services that are out there because they can, the sooner you start on doing that, the easier it will be for you after you land.
That's great. That's perfect. That question's been asked a couple of times throughout the session here today, so I'm glad we had a chance to respond to it. And the last question I'd like to actually pose to Marie, who has rejoined us. Marie, if you could walk us through quickly the slide that we had up earlier, how can newcomers get started on a job or career in Canada?
Yeah, I think you've got some great advice. Sorry, I had to leave suddenly. kick out from Zoom. But there's many options. A lot depends on what you have. If from your home country you have experience in banking, that's a help. If you've got client experience, direct experience that you can get here in Canada or where you began, for example, Deepinder had sales experience, and so that is also a help. So any experience that you can have that's related to financial services. If you want to go to the next slide, because lots of people ask, well, what can I do in financial services? Well, there's a myriad of careers that are possible in financial services. And if you go to our website, we have a career map that basically shows you many of the jobs that you can get in the bank. It shows you what the job is, what kind of salary you can expect from that job, and what qualifications you would need to get the job. And so that gives you a way to look at what are the careers possible in financial services as you come to Canada.
Perfect. On that note, thank you very much, Marie. We're just at 1 minute to the top of the hour here. So I think I will pass the torch back to you, and I will sign off and thank all of the participants and the panelists for today's very rich session and all of the information exchange. Marie?
Yeah, thank you very much, John. So this does conclude our event, and I'd like to thank Monica, Tarun, and Deepinder for their insight and advice to people coming to Canada and trying to get a job in the industry, and to you, John, for doing the facilitation for this webinar. If you do have additional questions, please email them to designations@csi.ca. We will be sending out a replay of this session, so it'll be available in the coming days. And with the replay, we will also send some links to the organizations mentioned by Monica and to the York Bridging Program. So thank you for attending. Have a great day and good luck on your path to a career in financial services.